I don't know if he took guilt trips, like, because it's like I don't know if he despised my mother, and maybe I always felt that when he looked at me, and maybe he saw her, because he would tell me, especially when he come pick me up from the hospital with the situation, with my ex. He always, anytime I got into any kind of altercation, he always would say, "You're gonna be just like your mother." He always would tell me that. My grandmother is no longer here. She crossed over probably about, I guess it's probably been about 7 years ago now. My aunt Odessa, one of my favorite aunts, she passed away last year on Mother's Day. Um, so it's my mother, my auntie Letha, my auntie Tavy, my uncle Jerry, which is in Miami and Key West. My mother is from Key West, Florida, also. But everybody's doing good. My mother is doing good. She's doing great. She's still kind of have her ways. We get along as long as we're not around each other, but we have to live together and be in the same room. We will bump heads, but everybody doing good. Nobody is in the drug game anymore. I influenced my mother to go back to school. She got her degree as a medical assistant. We went to the same college. 2011, I graduated from Jones College as a paralegal. I'm also certified in 4 different divisions, from litigation to cases, statutes, and fundamentals. I did investigations for homicide here in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Public Defender's Office for Matthew Shirk. So I inspired my mom to go back to college, because she was still using. She's been drug free now probably for a few years, which is a great achievement. I'm very proud of her. But I did inspire her to go back to college. Because my mother, and I did follow her footsteps. I mean, my father, he always told me, "You're going to be just like your mother." But what he failed to mention is that my mother was and still is a great, phenomenal woman. Like I said, she was the first black model in the 70s for Revlon. She was an actress, and she also was a lawyer. And she also worked at the public defender's office as a public defender here in Jacksonville, Florida. So I did follow behind her steps in that aspect. And I also got into modeling. I modeled for many years. I ended up getting into dancing. I was an exotic dancer for 12 years. Um, and now I've been in music all my life.
Let's go back just a little bit. All right, so you said she was in jail, and your cellie convinced you to say your poem as a rap. Could you tell us about the poetry, and then how did it turn into the raps?
Yes. Get into some trouble. I ended up doing some time incarcerated. At that time, I met a young woman that we became cellmates, and she was very gangster. She was from the street. She was very hardcore. She was very real. She ain't cut no corners. But I used to. I never was like really intimidated from her, but cause when she come in, cause she had tattoos, all that, and I used to, when she first come in, I'm like, oh Lord, this girl crazy. But she come out, that's one life experience where I learned, you don't judge a book by its cover, because me and her ended up becoming very close. But in this dorm, it was so drama out, and I just want to do my time and go. So, and I still have mental issues I was dealing with, so I never left out of cell. And she just always see me write all the time, write myself to sleep, wake up, pray, write, pray. That's all I did. And then she come to me one day and she said, "Hey," she said, "Would you be over here writing?" And so I tell her, And she say, oh yeah, she was like, can I read something? And I give her my paper, and that paper was actually a poem that I had just finished. It was called The Seal. And I wrote that poem. It was inspired from the book of Revelation, chapter 9. And at that time, it speaks about the coming of the end of the world. And at that time, you're either going to have the mark of the beast, which it says 666, or God's seal, which is a cross that would be placed in the middle of everyone's forehead. Everyone who don't not have that seal and the mark of their forehead, the Lord is said to send down locusts that will have face of humans, teeth like lion, wings of dragons, and tail of scorpion. And what that tail of scorpion, everyone that doesn't have God's seal placed in the middle of their forehead are to be stung and will suffer excruciating pain for a completion of 5 months that you will have to endure. And so that's where that poem was originated from. And as she was reading it, she say, wow, she say, you don't rap, and then and I say, well, I do a little something, but that's not rap. That's poetry, that's a poem. And she say, no, she say, you should rap this. And I used to be like, no, give me my paper bag. No, no, no. And she told me, she said, listen, she was like, yeah, just check it. Let me just do it. She said, okay. She said, just take it. I'm gonna take this part right here. So, in the like this about the fourth line in this poem, it says, living, struggling, trying to survive. And every time I turn around, I'm wiping blood from my eyes. Demons be in disguise, ready to kill. So if you will, get the seal and keep it real. And so that was something that really caught her attention. And she said, okay, this is how I would say it. Because she rapped too, but it was more of like a hobby for her. She really liked to see other people rap that really had a talent. She had the talent too, but she never like really saw it herself. But I know she did, because just how she did her demonstration, and she said, she do it like this. Living, struggling, trying to survive, and every time I turn around, I'm wiping blood from my eyes. Demons be in disguise, ready to kill. So if you will, get the seal and keep it real, because I'm living in this world, struggling, trying to survive, and every time I turn around, I'm wiping blood from my eyes. Demons be in disguise, ready to kill. So if you will, get the seal and keep it real. And so I like, okay, it sound, I get it, okay, but can I have my paper? It's still a poem. So anyway, long story short, we get really close and everything. I get out before her, and we made a promise with each other that when she get out and touch down, we were gonna get together and do everything that we said. We had planned and everything. And so I wrote her date down on my calendar, and I waited for her. I wrote her stuff, so I shoot in there. And so time, I got caught up in my own lifestyle or whatever. But I look at a date with her, and I say, wait a minute. I go back, because it had really been a couple months, and I say, wait a minute, Janella should have been out. And it's crazy, because as soon as it hit me with this date, I was like, dog. And I couldn't remember her last name. I used to go around and say she was from the east side in Jacksonville. Everybody here know her. Well, everybody that's my age group would know about her, because she was a big dope girl. And her husband was in a Jamaican cartel. And she was really big in the city, And just when that date pondered on me, I'm going around, I'm like, hey, y'all know, whatever. And it had been on the news. I hear on the news about two people being found in a ditch off of Myrtle Avenue here in Jacksonville, with their bodies decapitated and chopped up. And I didn't hear nothing about any names or anything, and they said, it was related to, a Jamaican cartel or whatever. And I remember being like, dang, they chopped them up. I was like, oh. So after that aired on the news, I'm still going out. And I'm like, hey, y'all don't know a girl named Johnetta, da 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 da. And then, the people that I was around, they say Johnetta Davis. And I was like, that might be, yeah, I think it would. I said that might be. They was like, yeah, Johnetta dead. And I was like, nah, this can't be the same one. And they say, well, it's only one Johnetta for real. And so, I go into more specifics and details. And they was like, yeah, she was locked up. And I'm like, yeah, we was locked up. And they was like, yeah, they was like, she dead, baby. They was like, it was just on the news a few weeks ago. Her and her husband was chopped up. Oh my God. It's like my soul left my body. I said, oh my God. And so I went home. I remember going home. I went in my room and I actually had not been, I was in the streets, and I was dancing. I was living a fast life, and I really wasn't like on my music or poetry as adamant or consistent, but that thing did something to me, and I went home. I had a big trunk, like chest trunk, that I kept all my music and material, everything I had locked on it. And I said, and I opened it up, and I went in my papers and I pulled the seal out. And as I was reading it to myself as a poem, but in my head, all I could hear was Janetta sitting in our cell on our bunk and her doing a demonstration of how she felt like it should be a rap. And so I took it, and that's what I did. I turned it into a song, and I dedicated that to her, and that was my tribute to her crossing over, turning, and I made the song, the seal, and that was my first song that I wrote, composed, and recorded.
All right, so were you at your dad's at this time, or this was long after you?
I was back in Jacksonville. I was back here in Jacksonville. That took place here in Jacksonville. We were incarcerated at the Duval County Jail. Yeah, I was already back here because when I turned 17, after I had my son, and unfortunately, my son, he passed away when he was 2 years old. And that's when I kind of just fell into a darker place. End up getting in trouble and, selling drugs and and a lot of gangster lifestyle. I'm back here, in Jacksonville with the mob, which was my family, and my son died. That's when I had really when I wrote the seal, that poem, and that's why I was telling her. I used to be like, no, I was so sincere about, no, like, no, this is a poem. And I wrote that poem about, that was all my pain and misery and suffering that I went through. That's why I say every time I turn around, I'm wiping blood from my eyes, because when my son passed, I cried so much. My eyes were so, I felt blistered. It hurted to blink. Felt like blood was coming out if I try to close them, and that's where that specific line came from. But yeah, Ella, I was here.
Let me ask you this: if you can openly speak with your father, what would you say to him?
If I could openly speak with them, I one thing about it, I would let my father know how much I love him. I would also let him know, you know, even though he was not there for us with, just that fatherly love, and that daddy's girl affection that we had when I was a child. But one thing I can say about that man is that he raised us with structure. He was very strict. He made sure, that, and even though he had a lot of money on rich men, he didn't just hand it out. He was like Scrooge. He'll tell you, I don't have no money, but he taught us, that you have to work for what you want. My father, he would always say the good values and the knowledge that we need to know. He would always tell us, he always used to say, if you want to be a rich, you have to hang around rich people. You can't have friends that do this, that, and wherever. You're gonna end up in jail or end up there, And then he always had to tell my mom, end up like her mom. Da, 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 da. But the Portiers alone, they're very solid. They almost the closest thing to perfection.